Welcome to the Blood Brothers podcast. I'm joined again tonight by the usual guests, Rob Parker and Chris McDonald.
Hello.
They're not even guests, they're just regional locals. And in our guest author seat, I'm very excited to say we're joined by the none other than Sunday Times best-selling author Cara Hunter.
Hello.
I'm such a fan, I'm basically gushing already, and I'm going to have to rein in. Honestly, it's sometimes people have these like, what's the author you will just buy, regardless of, and you are one of my authors. So as soon as I know there's another one out, you're like, and ready, pre-ordered. Thanks very much. I'm super excited.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. That's the sort of super fan you really need.
Honestly, and everybody's like, oh, you write books, you write crime. Who should I read? Cara Hunter. Nothing else. There's nothing else you should read. Sorry, everyone else. I mean,
are you regretting coming on here?
I won't tell you.
We may have just scuppered every other podcast that's coming up.
Yeah.
This is just my opinion. Other people have other opinions. Rob says every book he reads is the best thing he's read so far this year.
My glass is perennially half full. What can I do?
My glass is constantly Cara Hunter the whole way from it. Buy it. I'm ready for them. I was originally attracted to your first book because my mum's name is Carol Hunter.
Oh, that's
and I'd seen no PR and no anything else, and I was just like, oh look, that's almost like mum's name, and it's called Close to Home, and I was like, I want to be close to home.
There you are.
And so I bought it, and then I was like, my God, this woman can write. And then I've been a fan ever since.
We could probably leave now, Rob.
Yeah, I mean, should we just,
I'm sure you guys have questions. Everything is it's so beautifully, effortlessly perfect for the genre. It's a masterclass.
Oh, I've come over all unnecessary now.
Anyway, it's been lovely talking to you. So your 4 books out.
Yeah.
And
one on the way.
5th book on the way, 5th baby on the way, which is done, dusted, the print.
Dusted. I've just been going through some of the artwork because you know what I'm like. I've always got stuff in the books, haven't I? I've either got drawings, or I've got maps, or I've got.
Yeah.
So this time I've got some more stuff that I haven't had before. So I'm such a nerd. I do them all myself as well. I sort of do all the putting the bits together. It's
cool. Can I do a bit because that made reading your books, therefore, Cara, feels to me like there's an extra dimension to them. Because of that supplemental material. And I get sucked in all that bit more because I'm not just making stuff up with my eye. Well, with my brain, not with my eyes, with my brain. To go along with the pictures. Oh, I'm doing it again, aren't I? Talking out of the pod.
My eyes.
But you know what I'm trying to say? Like I got I don't have to make this up. It's there, and it's like another layer of enjoyment and immersion for me.
In Close to Home, I was so intoxicated by the text messages and the things just sort of popping up as they pop up, and you're like, oh, this is so much better than, do we italicize this, or do we is there a parenthesis, or she's like, no, it looks exactly like a text message.
I always wanted to look as close as possible to the real thing. So the crime scene drawing in the Dark, for example, was actually drawn for me by my CSI advisor guy.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I said, if I describe this crime scene to you, can you draw it for me exactly as you would? And so all those notes at the bottom are exactly what a real CSI would write. It's wonderful because then people can pore over it and see if they can find a clue in there. So it's the whole thing is, over time, it's become a way of making my readers into detectives. And I think a lot of people really seem to enjoy that aspect.
And I think for me, that's probably why I really fell in love with it, because in my producing history, I was always working on interactive drama, and so things online, and that involved having to have a lot more asset for people to play with. You can't just do the half-hour drama episode and expect people to be happy. If you mention a telephone number that's got a link to something, and that link has got to be a rabbit hole down which the audience will go, and that for me just kind of made me go, this is multi-level, but it's on paper, and I love that.
Yeah, well, it's as good as it can be on paper. Obviously, there's a limit to what I can do, but yeah, I do spend a lot of time with that, and I really enjoy them. And I always think that if you're going through a paper book and you see there's a picture coming up, you'll sort of get an extra sort of energy level comes in, and you think, oh, I wonder what that is, and I think it just helps make the pages turn a bit faster. So.
Absolutely, I think that I'm going to find the book on the shelf. Don't run away.
But it's like there's an increased accessibility for readers.
Actually, this is one of the first podcasts I'm back at home. I've been podcasting from my dad's, but I haven't had shelves to leap back and get things. But the other text that I found absolutely incredible was Stephen Hall's The Raw Shark text.
Yeah.
Have you read it?
Yeah, it's a new one.
Because in the middle of it, the text becomes a shark. And it's swimming. The Leviathan is swimming through the pages. I'm
wow!
To show them, people who are listening without the video. And as the madness gets more, there's just a little shark made out of the letters, but it's still the letters of the book, and it becomes a flick book of this thing coming towards you. But it's part of the story, and it's just
clever.
I reckon
it's incredible. It's such a beautiful book.
Yeah, it's really
clever. When it comes and gets you at the end.
Yeah.
Rob, as a Jaws fan, you must read The Raw Shark text.
Well, I mean, what's happened on these podcasts is that I learn so much and that I get put onto so much great stuff that I have an open window to a popular retailer on the side of the screen, so that I can just add to the basket as we're going through.
You have an open window to a debt collector / loan shark as well. For this enormous debt you're piling up.
No.
Can I ask about the interactive things in your book? Do you plan them beforehand, or do you think once you get to a bit, this could do with something a bit extra?
Well, they tend to be written in layers, if that makes sense. So the first, because they're quite modular with all those very short sections, so it's actually quite easy to assemble in blocks, if that makes sense. So the first line that will go down is the main crime story line, because I've got to make sure that actually works. So it goes, I've got everyone in the right place at the right time. I haven't given anything away too early, all that type of stuff. So that gets done first. And then I start putting in what I call the domestics. So it's the team at home, or scenes between the team themselves. So that goes in next, and so that I know that they're in the right place then, because they're reacting to something they might have done during the day or something like that. And then those sort of goodies all come quite late on. So because I'll then know, as you say, whether the pace needs to be speeded up at some point, or whether it could do with just breaking up a bit more, and it becomes more obvious where you can, as it were, dangle something interesting, and it starts people thinking or guessing about what might really be going on. So those tend to go in really late.
But that's incredible, because I think that's the first time I've heard somebody describe a modular approach to writing. And in the way that we would do with screenwriting, and the way that we would do with, you go, right, there's the plot, then there's subplot, and or serial writing, where, if you're writing a long-running series, you go, right, this is Phil and Kath's story, and that runs as a module, and then we slice it. So when I used to write on soaps, and you would have everything in a modular format, and you'd work on one set of characters' storylines, and they'd get woven in with other, and you might not even write parts of the other storyline that we're featuring in your series. You just fill in the gaps as you were given them in your episode. But that I think that's amazing for novel writing. I love that.
Well, it didn't come from any experience like yours. It just sort of evolved that way. I mean, I suppose
your brain works.
I suppose it also started with back in Close to Home, with the whole social media angle in that book, because I knew that the minute I decided I was writing a story about a missing child, I knew that social media was going to be part of that story, because that's just how it is these days, whether you like it or not, whether the police like it or not. They have to navigate that element of sort of public interest. And we all know that it can bring out the worst in people as well, those types of stories where they comment on the family, they know nothing about them, but they still comment. So I thought, well, what I'll do with this, given that I can't avoid it, I'm going to make a virtue of necessity and bring it inside the book. So I brought the voices inside. So they're bit like a Greek chorus or something like that. So they are there. They're not just commenting on the action, but after a while, they're actually part of it because things leak out of the virtual world into the real one. So having done that, it just seemed the next natural step was to start including the news items that went with that, and then it just sort of gathered momentum, and it became so much part of how I see the stories, and everyone seems to really like it. So I mean, why not carry on, really?
Because I think it's far more natural, and it sort of sits better with the flow and the structure of the story, because we're not suddenly having a character turn up and go, have you seen what they've said on social media today?
Yeah,
and then reading it all out. And this, like, somebody's turned up with their suitcase of exposition or their telephone of Twitter, and are now reciting for the team who are, Luddites and clunkophiles. You're just like, oh, God, can we not have that again?
Yeah, I mean, I
no,
hate
bollocks, there's the text, there's the newspaper, there's the... Go, read it.
I mean, I really hate those conversations you get in books where characters have to say things in order to give the reader information. But they would never say that in public, So yeah, I really hate that. So actually, those all of my additional bits and pieces can be marvelous ways of doing that, of giving information that the reader needs to know, but doing it in a rather more elegant way, and a way where my reader is doing the detecting bit for themselves and working out what is the information in here that I need to find out. So,
and as you say, it allows you to create an entire world of red herrings and other colours.
Yeah,
and people are like, "What is this? And this is a clue." I recently had a tweet from somebody recently who'd read one of my books as part of her MA in criminology, and had plotted out the crime scene from the crime scenes from the murders in my first book, and sent it back to me as a sort of diagrammatic, and you're just like, oh, this is brilliant. I did not put half of those things in there that you found, but I'm really happy that you found them.
I really like that. We touched very briefly on it, but I think that these... I don't want to call them visual aids, because they're not visual aids. They're storytelling tools, aren't they? And I think they added a layer of accessibility. So if anyone came to me and said, I really want something that's fresh and will grab me and I'll find it easy to really fall into, I would definitely be saying you've got to be getting onto Cara Hunter then, in which case, because you will fall in, because it's like a multimedia. It feels like, you know what I mean? Like it's great like that. Yeah.
Well, I can't wait. I mean, we're still fingers crossed with the TV, of course, because we're only at early stages of that.
Of course.
I cannot wait to see what the screenwriter does with this stuff. I'm just like a little kid wanting to know how do they take these books and then, try and replicate some of that type of experience with TV. You can do so much fun things with TV now. So, we're waiting to hear. Obviously, it's early.
And in that TV experience that you're coming up to, and obviously waiting to hear more about, do you have an exec position that you can actually say, no, that's absolutely not? Or are you just like, let them play, let's see what happens?
Well, they want me to be part of it, which is really nice. But I've had no experience screenwriting, so I don't want to try to pretend I can do something that I can't do.
No, gosh, that's a tough job.
No, I'd love to learn about it by watching someone do it, but I couldn't do it myself. I know that.
But also, I think I know authors like Jo Spain would never has said she would never adapt her own books for screen, even though she's a celebrated screenwriter and a celebrated author. She would never adapt her own books because it's too hard. There's so much you have to lose.
But they're different angles, aren't they?
Like, the joy of novel writing is that you can tell people what people are thinking. You can't do that on a screen. You've just got people like Clint Eastwood looking off into the distance, having either farting or thinking. Nobody knows what they're doing. And it's really difficult when you've created that world to then put it into a place that people can understand on screen. You should get somebody else. That's brilliant.
I think you're right. I mean, you have to accept it's going to be a different animal. It has to be. It can't be what's playing in your head. But you can do things on the screen you can't do on the page as well. So I'm looking forward to that bit of it, because you can drop your red herrings in on the screen by just having them in the shot, as it were, without having to say, and here is a man wearing a red coat or something.
Some dodgy bugger in the background giving side eye to your main character. Hello.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to that bit. But it's all very early days, but it's going to be a lot of fun, I think.
For those unaware of the news, Cara, could you just tell us what's happening? I mean, obviously the three of us know, but Twitter blew up with some great news regarding your series.
Oh, yeah, it was really nice actually when it finally sort of came out, because of course, like in all these things, I'd known for a little while before we could say anything. But yes, it's a fantastic production company called Castlefield, who are part of Fremantle, so big production group, and they are so excited about it, and we've had some conversations on the phone. Sadly, I've not met them because this all happened in early stages of lockdown. So we've had Zoom and everything, but and we had these wonderful conversations about the characters and stuff like that. And they're saying to me, and of course, this happens in the second book, and I'm thinking, does it? No, I can't.
Sorry, which book was that
again? So I've forgotten. I'm so much in book 5 at that stage, but just showed you the sort of the depth they got into in reading all of them, and they obviously they like the team dynamic as well as the crime stories that are sort of sitting on top of that. So I mean, I'm thrilled. I think they'll do a really, really good job. So
that's amazing.
It perfectly lends itself to screen. The characters are so engaging. It's so effortless. I keep saying effortlessly, in that I know it's not effortless to write a book. I do know that, but the reading of it is, you're just carried along, and you go, "This is incredible," and there I am. I finished it, and it really annoys me in a lot of ways, because I know it's coming out for pre-order about 6 or 7 months before. So I pre-order it, and then I'm excited for 6 or 7 months, and then a day and a half later, it's all finished, and it's like Christmas. Like Christmas every time. Santa's come. I didn't see him. I've had the presents. They were fine. It's all finished. I have to wait for another 7 months. Why did it take you so long to write more book?
I can, honest.
I understand.
We asked the really hard-hitting questions.
Yeah, sorry. But on that question, what was the Close to Home?
Yeah.
In the Dark came out quite relatively close together.
Yeah, they did.
Was In the Dark already written?
Yes, it was, because when Penguin bought, I'm just trying to get my dates in the right order now. Penguin bought Close to Home in about Easter 2016. Yeah. And it didn't come out until December 2017.
And then
because they wanted to get the right slot in their schedule for it. So I sort of had over a year where nobody knew who I was, and I was just writing another book. So I had one in the tank ready to go before we even started, and since then it's been about one a year. So that's about right.
It becomes a bit more manageable, really.
Oh yeah, I think you'd be insane to try and do more than one. I mean, I know some people do. I mean, some people are so crazily productive, but I think one a year if you're going to try and make sure your quality stays good as well.
Yeah,
because,
boys.
It's easy to write loads, but you're lucky if they can all be wonderful. The same quality. So yeah, I'm more concerned that each one is a good book than sort of rushing it and getting and hitting an imaginary deadline.
Well, they are bastard good. You can have that as a quote from. They are bastard good. Series quote. I'm happy.
I love it.
It leads quite nicely into a Twitter question. This.
Okay. Yeah.
About bastards.
Yeah. Try and get you back into touch here. Do you have a book that was, first of all, enjoyable to write? Which was your most favorite to write, and was there one that was the most challenging?
Yeah, that's a good question actually. The one that was most challenging was No Way Out, which was a third one, which is the one where it begins with the house fire, and the two small children are injured. One of them dies in the fire. That was very challenging to write emotionally. And I think a lot of readers have responded in the same way to that, there's some bits in that which were really quite heart-wrenching and quite hard to write. And as it turned out, structurally, it needed a lot more work for some reason. I don't know why. I had to sort of redo it a few times, which I don't normally have to do. In terms of enjoyable, I think probably the first one, because it just sort of sang right from the start. I think having got that twist, and you'll know what I mean, having got that twist, it was all about developing a story that would lead up to that twist and feel natural. So what I always want at the end of one of my books is the reader to go, oh my God, but of course.
I've been such an idiot.
I don't want them to feel cheated or that I've in any way deceived them, but I just want them to think, oh my God, but no, it was there. It was there.
No, because I think the joy of your books is that they stand up to second and third readings where you go, I already know the twist. I'm going to read it again. And I'm going to see where
and then you'll find all those.
I still didn't get it.
You'll find all those little clues then, all the things that you now know you're looking for. You will find there are a few like that.
Like, when you've got a favorite movie, like one of my favorite movies to watch and rewatch. It's not the best movie in the world, but my favorite movie to watch and rewatch is The Big Lebowski, because nothing is lost in it. And so even on the wall behind one of the characters in their house is a picture of some great big scissors. In a sort of pseudo modern style or in a Art Deco style, and they feature in Another Dream. And there's no single piece of set that every single bit of the film is constructed to tie together, and it's perfect. And things like that you just watch, and the more you watch it, you go, "Oh, that's clever." The design was clever. The art director was clever. The photographer was clever. Costume clever. And it's brilliant when all of those things come together. And we read a lot of crime and we read a lot of fiction, and you go, that's fine, that's possible, that's all worked. And what I think struck me about your books is that you can go back to them and go, ooh, that's layered on another layer. And we've got one from Red Dog. We've got one that came out last week from Anne Rawson, The Witch House, which does the same thing. Even during edits, every time you go back and read it, you go, not a bloody word is wasted. Not a word is wasted, and that is very clever writing. And I love it, so I'm going to stop blowing smoke up your ass and let the boys talk.
I wanted to. Sorry, Chris.
You go for it.
Well, I hope I'm not going to change the subject too much here, but it leads on from No Way Out, and I mean, it's your first 4 incoming 5 books, Cara, have been very successful, in terms of reaching an audience and people, and it's a wonderful, wonderful story. And you've got the Richard and Judy pick, which was extremely exciting. And I imagine you've been asked to death about that, but there is, right. I wanted to ask you about expectation, because my mum has told me that my last book was the best one I've done. Now I'm nervous about my next book. No Way Out was selected by the Sunday Times as one of the 100 best crime novels since 1945. How do you, if I'm nervous about my mum saying that I've got something to follow, because that is one of the greatest accolades I can think of. I mean, and I'm still speechless, really, thinking about that on your behalf.
Yeah, like they say, no pressure, huh? That was just breathtaking, really. I mean, I couldn't really believe it. I had to sort of stare at it for about 5 minutes to be sure that it really was actually me. But that was an amazing moment and very moving, actually. I suppose I just keep trying to do my best, really. And my editor thinks the whole truth's better than the others. So, she still thinks they're getting better as they go along. So I think perhaps part of that is, of course, the characters are more developed now, and I can rely on most of my readers of having had read at least one of them before, perhaps. So knowing who these people are, and so I can build on those characters. So you get a richness in the characters that, by definition, you can't have right at the beginning of the series. So I suppose that helps. It's just coming up with good crime stories is the really challenging bit. the domestics I can do. That's not a problem. I can do that. But coming up with a really good crime story to hang all of this from, that's the challenge. That really is the challenge.
And where does that come from? Where do you read and clip from newspapers?
I'm a true crime junkie.
Yeah,
I love true crime. I watch so much of it. I get teased to death by my husband about how much I watch, but it is actually fascinating, because the thing about true crime is the reason I'm so interested. It's not so much what people are doing; it's why.
Yes, exactly.
Why are people doing these things?
Why don't we all do them?
Yeah, well, exactly, and especially so much true crime is American as well, and if you get caught in America, they the sentences are really, really stringent. So I mean, the risk that people are taking.
You've got to think you're pretty fucking smart, haven't you?
You know what I mean? I mean, it's a very high stakes game.
You're like, I'm going to kill people. I might die myself, but I might not. You're going to die.
Have you heard of an app called Murder Minute?
What's this?
What's that?
I found it this week. It's called Murder Minute. It looks like I don't know if you can see it, but this one, it's like a clot with blood, and it's pretty much like you get sent a true crime story every day, and it's like a little 5-minute article. It's really good.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's free.
Thanks, I shall sort that out. Yeah.
Murder Minute.
That's amazing.
Great.
Murder Minute. Oh, amazing. Well, that we were talking about that sense of, I mean, as accolades go, that's a transcendent one. If you've, that's cross. I mean, you've touched so many people in a positive way with what you've done there, and so from that perspective, what advice would you give to young writers trying to get into it, or writers of any age trying to get into this business? What would you say to people who are trying hard but they're not quite found an audience, or what advice would you give them?
Well, that's always a hard one, isn't it? Because it's hard to sort of give a theoretical answer that works for everybody, rather than just how it might work for one particular person. I suppose there's nothing beats a good story well told, I think, and you can have gimmicks all over the place, and try and find bring in, I don't know, artificial intelligence or something, do some sort of gimmick that's very much sort of off the moment and see whether people are drawn to that. But I think nothing beats a good story well told, and to just be very demanding of yourself about that particular story. How well does it hold together? And I think that's probably in terms of the content what I would say, and also having a distinctive voice, and that's easy to say, and it's like one of these elephants, when you see it, but you can't really describe one particularly. That's an elephant. So a book that has a distinctive voice, you get it straight away, and you hook into it, and that's just practice, really. It's like everything else. Writing is about practice. The more you do, the better you get. And once you've got that voice, once you can hear that voice in your own head, then you're onto something. And then you need the good story to tell from that point of view. So I don't have a magic bullet on that one, I'm afraid.
No, thank you. I've noted all those down, Cara. Thank you.
But I think, to follow on that, like if there's a story that Cara, you're talking about watching true crime, and we've talked about this as well, boys, but there's a story that will hit you, and it's not necessarily the thing you were planning on writing next, or you'll read something and it sparks and it takes hold of you. It's like a grappling hook, and it sort of goes, come here. You're gonna listen to me now, and you're gonna tell me, and I don't care what other deadlines you've got. This is the story that needs told, and if you listen to that and you develop it and you shape it, don't then just tell it as a true story, but take it and create character and depth and world and everything else. But those stories will not let you go. And if the story that you've got, you feel like you're flogging, don't write the story.
No. I think that's one thing. Once you've done this for a bit of time, you know when a book is singing and when it isn't. And I said earlier, Close to Home did that right from the start. I could just tell it was coming together okay.
But you could feel that reading it. Like you could feel that it's sang because you're just like it's lyric, it's lyrically written, but every scene flows and you just go, somebody was excited writing this.
Yeah, I was having a great time. Of course, at that stage, I didn't know whether it would be published. I certainly didn't know whether there was going to be any more Fawley. So I didn't sit down with like a 10-book plan of what's going to happen to Adam Fawley over the next 5 years. So I was quite lucky. I just hit on a character who's turned out to have a lot more to him, and just people seem to like him. And
he's not your stereotypical sort of dried up bent copper, blah, it's just, you get sick of the tropes, don't you? And he's a really nice guy.
Yeah, people do them very well. I mean, I like your maverick, hard drinking cop as much as anybody else, but I just didn't want to do another one of them because it's so hard to keep doing something different with a very familiar, as you say, familiar trope. So I know a guy who's in love with his wife. I mean, how about that for something unusual?
Yeah, which is probably much harder to balance with a detective lifestyle than any other thing that you could throw at them. Alcoholism and everything. The hardest thing to balance is having time for your wife and family. Yeah,
absolutely. So yeah.
I like that. Good guys finish first for a change.
Yeah. But he doesn't always get it right, does he? He doesn't always get it right. Yeah. So I mean, that's been quite interesting as well, because you've got to you've got a trade-off there, and that you want people to think he's a good policeman, but we all know in real life they don't always get everything right.
No, you do the best you can given what you know at the time. Right?
Yeah, exactly. And you might get part of it right and not all of it. And, that sort of element of it, trying to make it feel authentic. And of course, I spend a lot of time trying to do that by, having people help me to make sure the procedural stuff is right, which is always the tricky thing. But I'm very lucky. I've got very good advisors. So, that part of it is fun as well, being able to talk to people about their professions. That is fun.
But in that sort of gentle way where you're like, I'm interested in talking to you about your profession, but also you are giving me all of the detail that I need to make this right.
Yeah, I think they quite enjoy it, actually. I think
you do come round for dinner. I remember working on one of the cyber thriller series that I was working on, and I had a bunch of hackers, white hat and black hat hackers, who were my advisors, and you'd be like, right, I want to do this, and they're like, no, you're an idiot. Okay, but this is what I need to happen in the story, so how can I best achieve this? And you're like, I don't want loads of cyber detail. I don't want like code and shit. I mean, people need to know the code and shit, but I don't want to write it in the book. So what I need is a plausible way that X could happen. And they're like, oh God, okay, fine. We've written you this hack that you could do that. And like, thank you.
Yeah. No, but it's exactly the same process. I always get very happy when I get my CSI guy sort of looking at me, and there's. I'm not going to obviously say what it is, but in the whole truth, a lot of that hinges on one particular moment. And I said to my CSI guy, Joey, I said, could you do that? And he said, bloody hell, yeah, you could. I've never seen it done, but you could.
Oh, that's amazing. That is cool.
So I got it.
Oh, yeah.
That was one of those
moments. Exciting.
Yeah, that was really cool. So I was really, really pleased. But yeah, he's great. He's great fun. I sometimes nick his jokes as well, because he's very funny in a sort of very dark sort of a way. I suppose it's the type of work that he does. So he sometimes finds his jokes working their way into the book.
Can I ask about that level of research? You obviously research heavily, and especially with the help of Jerry. But at the same time, if anyone asked me to say, could you show me some police procedural elements that have done really well that don't slow story down, I would suggest the Fawley series, because it's there, but you don't go so heavy in them that you're bogged down in the procedure, the actual to and fro of being a police officer, but you give enough to totally buy it. You know what I mean? Like you never question that it's real and that it's happening and this is how they would do it. So I imagine that comes from Jerry.
That's actually Andy. He's a
Andy,
well,
sorry.
The police officer is Andy. He's a DI himself. So he's the only thing he always says to me, and he laughs every time. He says, "Yeah, Adam Fawley's always interviewing people. DIs do not interview people. They don't have
Really?
to interview people." So he's always putting notes in the margin saying, "Adam's interviewing again," and I say, "Look, I have to have him doing stuff. Readers want him to do stuff. They don't want him just sitting at the desk." So so that's always a bit of a giggle we have every time, that he's a bit too hands-on for Andy's liking. But the thing I always find the hardest, and even after 5 books now, I'm still don't always get it right, is the point where I suppose you could call it a person of interest or a witness turns into a suspect, and the point where that suspect has to be arrested in order for them to then carry out the right type of interrogation. And it's always earlier than I think it's going to be. There's always, when I do my interviews transcripts, I'm sure you're familiar with, Andy's always saying, no, we'd have arrested him by now. So I always have to make that point earlier than I think it would be.
Wow.
So it's counterintuitive.
But it's interesting because it's also it's sort of earlier than you would assume, plotting wise. The audience was ready for it, but actually,
very good point.
The reality is, you go, well, we've arrested them. We've had to let them go. We've rearrested them later on at the point where you thought it would have been more fitting for the audience.
That's such an interesting balance.
It is an interesting balance, because I want it to feel as authentic as possible. Though, Andy understands it's a work of fiction, and also the timelines are always condensed because police work takes ages, and you can't you pull the pants off people if you put in the degree of detail that actually happens. So it's all a bit compressed. But it has to be in the right sequence, I think. So that's what's important. But I've learned so much just by talking to him and seeing how he takes apart what I'm doing, and it's just really interesting. It's a really sort of productive conversation every time.
Really? I spoke with sorry.
No, I was just going to ask how you came. Did your publishers put you together with these people, or did you find these people before?
There's a funny story about that. When I first wrote Close to Home, I didn't talk to anybody. I did all my research online. Partly because I thought, well, these are people doing important jobs. They don't want me just bowling up and saying, "Oh, I'm an aspiring crime writer. Could I have 3 hours of your time?"
I've bought biscuits.
That was about all I had to offer at that stage.
Exactly.
So I did it all online, and it was hilarious. I went to see Katie, my editor at Penguin, and one of the first things she said was, "Oh my God, this feels so authentic. You must have spoken to loads of police officers." And I sort of laughed nervously. No, I haven't spoken to anybody.
I'm very good at the Google.
I am actually very good at Googling. Yeah. She laughed as well and said, "Well, okay, I think you better find one." So Andy, it was actually a friend of a friend who put me in touch with him. Likewise, Joey, the CSI guy. I already knew the guy I talked to about the legal side, and he's an old neighbour. So, I just started to assemble a group of people, and then for particular books, I need other people. So for No Way Out, I spent a lot of time at the fire station in Oxford. My husband just jokes that I just do this to spend time with men in uniform, which
that's also a thing.
It's a great cover story, if ever it was needed.
If ever either of you both need to spend time with men in uniform, there you go.
Oh, dear. Well, a girl's got to have a hobby.
It can't all be writing.
Can I ask about the whole truth?
You can.
What are you going to tell us?
What am I going to tell you? It's it won't surprise you that I'm looking at a contemporary issue, because I do tend to do that a bit. This one, it's Me Too.
Good. So we like that.
So it's in fact, we've got a cover reveal coming very soon, so I think that'll give you a bit more information as well.
I think it's just gone up on Amazon. Is that it?
Yes, it is. Yes, so there we are.
It's beautiful. What a great cover!
It's very nice.
Yeah,
one, and they've taken the sort of style forward a bit. I think
really
a bit different to the previous ones. But the other thing that's really crucial about the whole truth is that we get the Gavin Parry story playing out, which started in All the Rage. This old case, people who haven't read All the Rage, this old case, which Adam was instrumental in putting somebody away for a series of terrible sex crimes back at the end of the 1990s. And this is a man who's always claimed that he didn't do it. So he's now been let out on parole finally, and he's out for revenge. So we knew that at the end of All the Rage, but now we're going to actually see how that's going to play out, and that's the sort of big weight of the story certainly towards the end of the book is that. So yeah, that was an interesting one. First time I had a story go over 2 books like that. It sort of had to happen, really. It's too big a story to do in one. But yeah, that's why there's sort of double meaning of the whole truth in the story. In the title of the story is obviously the whole truth, what you say in court, but also it's this campaigning organisation that we saw briefly in All the Rage, a fictional sort of miscarriage of justice campaigning organisation who call themselves the Whole Truth. So that's hence the sort of double meaning in the title. So that's why it's called that.
Brilliant,
very cool. That's March next year, is that right?
Yeah, it's been put back a bit. Well, everything publishing is being put back, because of lockdown and everything else. So it was due to come out before Christmas, but we're out to March now, I think.
Yeah, I think just give us some airspace before. Nothing good is going to happen this year, is it?
Well, there's coming out later, isn't there? I saw, there's so many more than normal coming out in September, and it's going to be really sort of difficult and quite crowded, I suspect. The pre-Christmas market, all the books that were postponed while lockdown was on. So
yeah.
It's crazy. My friend Suzanne Hewitt has her debut out with Trapeze. But it was supposed to come out on March 20th. Sorry, not March 20th, March 2020.
Okay.
And they just put it back a whole year.
Whole year.
And it's a whole year, yeah, and it's her debut as well. And she'd done the deal back in 2018 as well, I believe. So it's just like, oh man, and it's like a multi-book deal as well. And it's a career waiting to happen, but this has just put a year completely on hold.
I think that's quite sensible because a debut will get lost in this.
Absolutely.
I think the people I've been sorry for in the writing world have been debut people in the last 4 months.
In the last 3 or 4 months.
There was no festival presence. There was no bookshop events. There was, you can't just wander into a shop and see it on the table and pick it up. It's, it's been really hard for them, and they've got no name recognition because they're new. Of course, they don't have that. So I felt so sorry for debut writers, especially those.
There's not even as a publisher. There's not even shops open that we can petition to put things on tables or do a special deal because they've got nothing else going on. You just say, no, we can do online stuff.
And it's really hard for them. So I felt really sorry for people in that position.
I think in a lot of ways it's better to postpone some of the stuff and just let it come when people are back able to do the way. We don't want publishing to go back to the way it was. We want it to be more nimble and more adaptable and more embracing of the digital revolution and all of those things. But at the same time, we need footfall and people need to meet authors and names need to be recognized in order for big selling to happen. And, those two things they're not. As a small indie, you can carry on doing digital stuff, and that's absolutely great because you're not denting your bottom line too much, but you're not getting any of the shop footfall, and you're not getting any of the purchasing, and you're not getting any of that stuff. So, but
long may it rain. Sorry, soon may it change. Is that even a thing? Long may it rain. Let's stay in lockdown forever.
Oh, no.
Marvelous. No. I mean, honestly. Although I don't know what I'm going to do having to actually get dressed.
I don't know what I'm going to do having to actually style my hair with something that isn't a flock of people.
Yeah. Believe me, if you think I'm wearing anything respectable below
I think he's wearing
below
anything
here,
underneath
this is a crop top. No, sorry. I always put my foot in it somehow. You know.
The thing you have to understand, Cara, is that he's insanely innocent, and none of this was meant to be in any way suggested.
It's not. I didn't mean it to be rude.
Look how red he's gone. You turd.
I don't, guys. She wrote one of the top 100 books since the last World
And I've
War.
just suggested I'm wearing a shoulder vest and nothing else.
Let me just try and stretch this down a little bit. In fact, that's the other thing. I couldn't get in. You know, like I know I've gone up a size during lockdown as well. You know, like it's.
I think everyone has.
Yeah, it's the real world, isn't it?
You still measure clothes in sizes?
Should I do the spike of the path?
Yes, please. Bring us
Yes,
back
please,
on track.
please, Chris,
Well,
please.
We do a thing every week, Cara, called 1-Star Superstar, where I pick a book that has been big, and I find a 1-star review that generally we don't agree with, and everyone here has to try and guess which book I'm talking about, or not.
But it's not your book.
No,
It's not
it
your
won't be
book.
one of yours. It won't be one of yours. We're not cruel. But this was a massive book, so I'm gonna read a 1-star review from Ben,
Right.
who I wouldn't want to know after this.
I'm ready.
So 1 star, Amateur Prose is the title. I was really looking forward to getting stuck into this on my commute. All the 5-star reviews, it must be good, right? Wrong. It's terrible. The writing quality is simply substandard. The little I did read is written in the first person with a lot of I did this, I did that, and had no elegance or subtlety, which is rubbish. The author tries to be dramatic with every sentence, over-exaggerating for effect, and it just did not work for me. Inappropriate use of adjectives, poor structure. I'm not an English lit student, but I got more frustrated the more I read. The editor needs to take some responsibility too to allow this drivel to be published. I'm only 50 pages in, but I can't carry on. It's that painful.
Jesus.
Wow.
But there's
From
no
2000
clues as to what the story's about, Chris. This is difficult.
One of the biggest books of 2018.
Oh, crikey.
18.
Going back a bit.
Yeah.
The Seven Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle?
Yes.
Oh,
I am so
No
good at this
way!
game these days.
Yeah, man.
How did you do that?
you told him, didn't you?
No, not at all. It really did
seems
this
like
game.
There was no clue whatsoever in that review.
I said there were clues. There were clues. There were
Oh,
clues. There were clues
right.
about adjectives, prosy,
First person.
English literature, first person. And the thing is that until you hit the first switch in the Seven Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle, you don't get it. So if he'd only got to 57 pages, he's not going to get it.
I'm halfway through and I am like absolutely.
Once you get past the first switch, you're like, oh, this is genius.
Yeah.
And it is.
Incredible.
I've ruined the game again by getting it on the first game.
Yeah, but
Can I ask my customary question, not to read out our guests' 1-star reviews, but can I just ask, Cara, what's your favourite 1-star review of your own work? Do you have one that's come in that made you particularly laugh?
Well, I don't know what other authors think. I always think the 2 stars are the ones that break your heart because they're the ones who've actually sort of got an opinion and read it. Whereas 1 star,
Yeah.
1 star, I either haven't finished it or say things like one of my favourites was this arrived late. Well,
Into your brain, yes, it did.
I think that's a 1-star review for the topic rather than a 1-star review for me. But it's just hilarious stuff like this isn't science fiction. I wanted science fiction. Well, I'm really sorry.
I've said it before, but I've had a number of 1-star reviews on my book, The Cuckoo Window. Like, this is nothing like Twilight, and you're like, no. Neither was it intended to be.
I love them. I love these people.
But the 2 stars are the heartbreakers because they're like, I've read it, I've bastard hated it.
Yeah.
But 2 stars are the heartbreakers. I try not to read them because just you're just going to go away upset. So what's the point?
But that's where I learn, though. I learn from the 2 and 3 stars. I learn more. 2, 3, and 4. I learn more.
I just go, what the fuck do you know? And walk away.
But I'd rather get, if there was for me to improve, I'd rather have the 2, 3, 4s It's lovely to get the 5s, but it's extra special to get like a really mean 1. I mean, that's like day made with someone who's tried to ruin your whole day
if the one
before you've
is
even had your
an
porridge.
actual deconstruction of everything that you've written, but if the one is, oh well, it didn't arrive on time, or it's not what I was expecting.
Oh, that's hilarious.
My friend told me
that's
to
exactly
buy this,
what we want.
and now I found out he's having an affair with my wife, so I hate the book.
Yeah, the 1-star reviews where you get an evisceration of yourself as a person, that's like the proper gold. That do you remember when we spoke to Karen Hamilton? She said some guy emailed her and said that and he said, I'm going to give it one more go, and he wrote such a lengthy email. By the end, he was like, I'm sorry, I just can't have another go. It was that awful.
But he went through the form email on her website, and then but he sent her a number of. He updated her on his progress of giving it another go.
He went to such length to slate it. Yeah. Oh, do you have any wacky fans, Cara?
From me, obviously.
No curious, interesting human beings that we could look out for in the crowd at your next festival appearance.
Sean, by the looks of things.
Hey, I don't carry weapons to festivals.
One of my mates did actually turn up to the to one of my parties dressed as a police officer wearing a pair of waders. Which
Ladies and gentlemen, my biggest fan. DCI.
I couldn't believe he done it, but he did. Anyway, no, that's quite fun. I do tend to put a lot of the names of minor characters are actually my friends' names. So they always like that. So you sort of spot themselves in the books as well. And the other thing, I do a lot of winks. You know what wink is? Yeah, where you put something in a book which is for a particular person. Yes. Joke between you two. I didn't know it was called that, but that's it is. And the funniest one was I put in what I thought was a wink for my husband, which is about how you've probably seen it. It's a running gag, how Adam is always infuriating his wife when she's put things in the dishwasher, he takes them all out again and restacks the whole thing, which my husband does, and it drives me up the blooming wall. And I thought that was just a joke between me and him. You've got no idea how many women have contacted me afterwards.
Really?
The same. My husband's the same. He's always doing that.
So I can tell you that there's 3 books coming out from us that I've edited recently that all have the same thing in them.
Well, there you are.
2 of them, it's been a major sticking point in the relationship. Well, just fuck your own fucking dishwasher and put it on, and then nobody has to see what's inside.
Complains that I just chuck things in the dishwasher and don't do it properly. I said, well, you're going to take them out again anyway. So
I had a big chat with my wife about, why I can't find things in the fridge and she can in like that,
Because you do a boy look is why.
Sorry?
You do a boy look is why.
No, I got so hung up on it. I did a load of research into this, and I have, I have a theory, but it's backed up by a load of science. But I don't know whether, it's probably not it's not the most. It plays upon the physical difference between the ocular activities and ocular histories of the 2 genders.
I assumed it was a caveman thing that bloke was always looking at far distance to try and find.
Did we read the same study, Cara? We might have done. Seriously, is this a problem in your house
too?
You were
just going to say you got distracted by something prettier and shiny over there, and you couldn't look in the fridge.
No, I don't think it's the same with multitasking, isn't it? You can't afford to get distracted when you're trying to hunt down a woolly mammoth. So that's why
that's it. Yeah, I mean, I now use this all the time. If I'm in the car and I get asked a question while I'm listening to, I don't know, sometimes whatever it is I'm doing, I'm like, I can't do 2 things at once, and I can't because science. It's great.
I'm going to stand aside as an example of a man that can multitask.
Oh well, fair play to you, mate, because I've tried to be that modern man, and I know I just.
But it's not about It's not about modernity. It's just about the way your brain is wired, and maybe I have a more feminine brain.
Cara, what are you reading at the minute?
I've just finished. I think don't know whether you saw my tweet about it yesterday. I just finished Catherine Ryan Howard's
Oh,
The
yeah.
Nothing Man, which is and that's fabulous. I really, really like that. So yeah, that's been my favourite crime read of the year so far, which is saying something because I read a lot. I know I get sent a lot, which I'm really lucky to get. So yeah, that's a good one. I think I'll read another one of hers. I hadn't read her before, so I think I'll read another one of hers.
It's the genre that just keeps giving, isn't it? Like there's always someone amazing to discover that it just drives you mad. Like, and I'm embarrassed to talk about authors I'm only just discovering now. It's embarrassing to talk about that. I've just hit 10 on the currently reading list. So yeah.
I don't know how you can read. I can only read one book at a time.
This isn't a point of pride. This is like it's got out of hand now. Like because you've promised that you're going to read so many things, and then it's just like, right, okay, I'm reading. Oh my word, I'm just doing. So it's like 10 pages of this, 10 pages of that, 10 pages of that, and then somehow I'm holding
it. They all blend into one, surely.
No, I feel like I'm. I feel like I'm getting there, though. But I am reading something very good at the moment, actually. Oh, can I talk about it? Is that all right?
If you like.
Thank you.
What are you reading at the moment, Rob?
Well, I've stepped away from crime. Just as like a little bit of a palate. I know, the shock, the outrage. But I'm
going to cut this bit.
Don't cut this bit.
crime podcast.
No, because I'm in research mode for something else that I'm aiming at. So, so I'm reading In the Valleys of the Noble Beyond in Search of Sasquatch by John Zarda. Now, seriously, this is some of the most beautiful nature writing I've ever read, ever. And it just so happens is about some absolutely legendary dude who is going into the Colombian wilderness looking for Sasquatch, the British Columbian wilderness. And it's just intoxicating. And it's about meeting the people that live there and their stories and stuff like that. And it's told in such a poetic way. And this is like a big blanket for me at the moment. It's just lovely. I'm really enjoying it. And every now and then I get absolutely terrified. So it's good. It's a really nice read.
Sasquatches aren't real, are they?
Sasquatches aren't real.
Of course they are. Just like dragons and unicorns.
No, this is far more real than them, Sean.
So it's a nature book about something that might not exist.
It is a beautifully literate nature travelogue about something that might be completely bogus. Yes, it would be, but yeah, it's brilliant. It's absolutely lovely.
And yet you describe it as non-fiction.
It is non-fiction, yes. Stop it! Stop it! The people he met are real. No pointing on a video,
Well, you've got your pointy finger out. You're really angry right now.
No, I think it's nice to try something out of your comfort zone, isn't it? Though, it really is nice. This is really nice. I'm really enjoying it.
What are you reading, Chris?
I'm halfway through The 7 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle.
Timely.
Which is incredible. I know I spoke to him on Twitter and he said he reckons I'm the only person in the world that's read his unreleased book first and then gone back.
Probably.
So it's quite an accolade, I guess.
It's interesting.
So yeah, it's mind-blowing and mind-bending and all sorts. But yeah, loving it. Really, really good.
He strikes me as a really nice fella, Stu Turton.
Yeah, and also, that review where it said he's trying to be dramatic in every sentence, I don't think he has to try. It is like a book full of drama and so beautifully written.
No, it is, and it is incredible. But the reason I got that 1-star review is if you don't read through the first flip, you kind of go, "Where are we with this?
Yeah,
what is this?" But yeah,
I loved it. What are you reading, Sean?
Quantum Theory cannot hurt you.
So fiction.
Non-fiction, unfortunately. Listen, thank you so much for joining us for this hour.
Oh, it was brilliant! I loved it.
And thank you so much for writing what are my favourite crime series books. Without doubt, and I'm not just saying that because you're on. They have been from before I started writing crime. So. I bloody love them.
I really, really appreciate that. I really do. Praise from another writer is always really, particularly close to your heart.
Yeah, well, don't stop doing what you're doing because it hits all the right buttons. And
thank you. You'll have to let me know what you think of The Whole Truth when it comes out.
Oh, I can't wait! Seriously, wait! Why is next year so far away?
We should be getting proofs at some point, so let me have your emails, and
thank you.
Thank you. Well, no, a massive thank you. Really inspiring talking to you, Cara. Thank you very much.
I really enjoyed it, guys. Thanks so much for inviting.
Can we have a beer with you at a festival when we're all allowed out?
Yeah, I'd love to.
Would that be all right? We'd love to have a beer with you.
Yeah, wait, which ones you're going to? Definitely.
All of them. We'll be the three in the background, too embarrassed to come over and go, do you remember you did that podcast with us?
Now
I'll be in a big the one in the policeman outfit and the waiters.
We'll put the logo on our t-shirts. It'll be fine.
Yes. You won't be able to see mine because I'll be wearing a Bigfoot suit. So.
Yes. Or carrying a
stop with the Bigfoot.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Lovely to see you all.
Thanks, guys.
Great.
Thanks a lot.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.